You owe your sister your bone marrow. My mother screamed after she sabotaged my career. I tease family. I looked to tee them all. Actually, she's not my sister. The room went silent as I pulled out the DNA test results. The call came on a Tuesday evening just as I was finishing up my lab reports. My mother's voice crackled through the speaker, a mix of accusation and desperation I'd grown far too familiar with over the years. Rachel needs you. She's dying, Angelina. I let the silence stretch, my pen hovering over the last unchecked box on my form. Even now, after everything, my sister's name made my hand shake. What do you want from me? She has leukemia. Aggressive. The doctors, my mother's voice broke. They say you're the only match for bone marrow donation. You're her only hope. I'm Angelina, and 6 months ago my beloved baby sister systematically destroyed my career. Now she needs my bone marrow to survive. Funny how life works sometimes. I'll think about it, I said, hanging up before she could protest. My office felt suddenly too small, the familiar smell of antiseptic now suffocating. I grabbed my coat and headed for the door, nearly colliding with Harper in the hallway. Whoa, where's the fire? She steadied me, her eyes narrowing at whatever she saw in my face. You look like you've seen a ghost. Worse, family. I tried to smile but couldn't quite manage it. Rachel's sick. They want my bone marrow. Harper's expression hardened. After what happened last winter, she was one of the few who knew the full story. The same Rachel who sent those emails to the board, who convinced Tatum to lie about your research methods. The very same. I leaned against the wall, suddenly exhausted. My mother's probably already on her way here to guilt-trip me in person. As if summoned by my words, my phone buzzed with a text. Mom, I'm coming to your office. We need to talk. Speak of the devil, I muttered, showing Harper the message. Want me to stay? I shook my head. This is something I need to handle alone. 20 minutes later, my mother burst through my office door, clutching a manila envelope. She looked older than I remembered, her carefully maintained blonde hair showing more gray at the roots. Here are her medical records, she said without preamble, spreading papers across my desk. The procedure isn't dangerous. You'll be back at work in a week. I picked up one of the documents, scanning it without really reading. Hello to you too, Mom. Don't be difficult, Angelina. This is your sister's life we're talking about. Funny how that works, I said, keeping my voice deliberately light. When it was my career on the line, neither of you seemed particularly concerned about my life. That again? She waved her hand dismissively. You're still obsessed with those ridiculous accusations? Rachel would never. I have proof. The words came out sharp enough to cut. Emails, witness statements, even a recorded conversation between her and Tatum. Would you like to see them? My mother's face paled slightly, but she rallied quickly. Whatever happened in the past doesn't matter now. She's your sister, is she? I stood up, walking to my filing cabinet. That's actually become quite an interesting question lately. What are you talking about? I pulled out a thick folder labeled DNA evidence and placed it on my desk. My mother's eyes fixed on it like a snake watching a mongoose. What is that? Insurance, I said softly. Against exactly this kind of situation. Did you really think I wouldn't investigate after what happened? That I wouldn't dig deeper? You're being ridiculous. But her voice wavered, and her hands were shaking as she gathered up Rachel's medical records. Your sister is dying, Angelina. Whatever game you're playing, no games, Mom, just truth. For once in this family's history, we're going to deal in truth. I sat back down, folding my hands on my desk. I'll give you my answer about the bone marrow in 3 days. Until then, I suggest you think very carefully about what secrets you're willing to have exposed. She left without another word, her heels clicking rapidly down the hallway. As soon as she was gone, I opened the DNA file and stared at the results I'd received just last week. The truth that would blow my family apart was right there in black and white. Rachel wasn't just my manipulative, backstabbing sister. She wasn't my sister at all. I picked up my phone and dialed Harper's number. Hey, remember when you said you'd help me no matter what? I need a favor. How much do you know about tracking down biological parents? The hospital corridor smelled like false hope and cheap coffee. I stood outside Rachel's room, gathering my courage while Harper waited by the elevator. You don't have to do this, she reminded me. Yes, I do. I smoothed my blazer, a habit from countless research presentations. She needs to see my face when I tell her no. Rachel was sitting up in bed, scrolling through her phone. Even pale and gaunt, she managed to look perfectly put together, a silk robe coordinating with her designer pajamas. Some things never change. Well, look who finally showed up, she said, not looking up. Come to play the hero? Actually, I came to give you my answer in person. I stayed by the door, maintaining a safe distance. The answer is no. That got her attention. She set down her phone, her practiced smile slipping just a fraction. You can't be serious, dead serious. Consider it calmer. Calmer? She laughed, but it sounded hollow. For what? Still bitter about that little misunderstanding at work? Little misunderstanding. My voice rose despite my best efforts. You destroyed my reputation. 5 years of research gone. All because you couldn't stand that I might actually succeed at something. Oh please. Rachel rolled her eyes. You're so dramatic. I did you a favor. That research was going nowhere and you know it. Besides, Mom always said don't. I cut her off. Don't you dare bring Mom into this. She's been cleaning up your messes since we were kids, but not this time. A nurse poked her head in, probably attracted by our raised voices. Everything okay in here? Fine, Rachel said sweetly. My sister was just leaving. Not quite yet. I waited until the nurse left. I want to hear you admit it. Tell me why you did it. You really want to know? Rachel's face transformed, the mask of sweetness falling away. Because you deserved it. Always so perfect, so smart, so dedicated. Poor little Angelina, working so hard while I got everything handed to me. Well, guess what? I worked hard too. I just worked smarter. By sabotaging me. By understanding how the world really works. She leaned forward, her eyes bright with fever or malice. I couldn't tell which. You think talent matters? Integrity? Please. What matters is who you know, who you can manipulate. I learned that from watching Mom. Yeah. About Mom, I pulled out my phone, pulling up a photo of the DNA results. Want to hear something interesting? I'm dying, Angelina. I don't have time for your games. Make time. I turned the screen toward her. See these markers? They show paternal DNA. Notice anything strange? She squinted at the screen, then went very still. What is this? Proof that we don't share the same father. Guess Mom's been keeping secrets from everyone. The color drained from her face. You're lying. Am I? Ask her yourself. Watch how she reacts. I tucked my phone away. But do it soon. You're running out of time after all. Just do it for Mom, she hissed, desperation creeping into her voice. Be useful for once. I walked to her bedside, leaning down until we were eye to eye. That's funny, you sound just like her. But here's the thing. I'm done being useful, done being the family doormat. You want my bone marrow? Earn it. How? Confess to everything. The emails, the lies, getting Tatum to falsify reports, write it all down, sign it, have it notarized. Maybe, then we'll talk. You'd let me die over this? Her voice cracked. Over your precious career? No, Rachel. I'd let you die because you've never faced consequences for your actions, not once in your entire life. I straightened up. Think about my offer. You have 3 days. I walked out, my hands shaking but my head high. Harper was waiting exactly where I'd left her. How'd it go? About as well as expected. I pressed the elevator button. She'll tell Mom about the DNA test within the hour. And then, the real fun begins. The elevator doors opened with a cheerful ding. Want to help me track down her real father? Are you sure about this? Harper asked as we descended. Once you start down this road, I'm sure. I watched the floor numbers tick down. They taught me well, you know. All those years of subtle cruelty, masked as love. Time to show them what a good student I've been. My phone buzzed. Mom calling. I declined the call with a smile. Let the games begin. 37 missed calls, I told Harper as we spread the ancestry results across my dining room table. Mom's getting desperate. Can you blame her? Harper pointed to a highlighted section of the report. Look at this. Rachel's paternal lineage shows strong Hispanic markers. Your dad was Swedish American, right? Through and through. I took a sip of wine, remembering Dad's pale blue eyes and fair hair, which means Mom has some explaining to do. My phone buzzed again. This time it was a text from Lamar, my ex. Heard about Rachel. Need to talk. Important. Speaking of explanations, I muttered, showing Harper the message. Lamar, wasn't he the one Rachel tried to steal? Yeah. I typed back a quick response, agreeing to meet him at our old coffee spot. Wanna bet she tried something with him too? An hour later, I sat across from Lamar at Penny's Coffee, watching him fidget with his cup. He looked good. Success suited him. His tech startup had taken off right after we broke up. I should have told you this years ago, he said, finally meeting my eyes. Rachel came to my office the week before we split up. Said you were cheating on me with my business partner. I nearly choked on my latte. What? I didn't believe her at first, but she had pictures. You hugging Mike outside some restaurant. Said you'd been meeting him for months. That was about the investor meeting. I slammed my cup down, coffee sloshing over the rim. Mike was telling me they'd approved the funding for your project. It was supposed to be a surprise. Lamar's face crumpled. I know that now. Mike told me everything last year, but by then I'd moved away, and you'd married someone else. I sat back, laughing without humor. She really wanted everything I had, didn't she? There's more. He pulled out his phone, showing me an email. She contacted me last week. Said she was sick, needed money for experimental treatments, wanted to know if I'd reconsider our relationship. While she was asking me for bone marrow? I shook my head. Unbelievable. My phone buzzed. Another text from Mom. Please call me. We need to talk about what you told Rachel. Still playing the victim? Lamar asked, nodding at my phone. Always. I stood up, gathering my things. Thanks for telling me, Lamar. Better late than never. Back home, Harper had made progress. She traced Rachel's genetic markers to a specific region in Mexico, narrowing down the timeline to when Mom worked at Central Hospital. Look at these employee records, Harper said, pointing to her laptop screen. There was only one doctor of Hispanic descent working in her department during that period, Dr. Eduardo Ferguson. Eduardo Ferguson, I repeated, the name tasting like truth on my tongue. Find him. Already did. Harper grinned. He's chief of surgery at Memorial Hospital in Phoenix, never married, no kids, at least none he knows about. My phone rang again. This time I answered. Angelina, please. Mom's voice was ragged. Whatever you think you know, I know enough. I cut her off. Did Dad ever suspect? Your father has nothing to do with this. Had, I corrected coldly. Dad's been dead for 5 years. Convenient for keeping secrets, isn't it? You don't understand. Do know you don't understand. I gripped the phone tighter. I'm done being the family punching bag. Done watching Rachel get everything while I get blamed for existing. You want to save her? Start telling the truth. What do you want? She whispered. I want you to suffer like I suffered. I want Rachel to learn what it feels like when everything falls apart. I glanced at Harper, who was giving me a thumbs up. Check your email in 5 minutes. I'm sending you the DNA results. Full analysis. I hung up and turned to Harper. Did you find his contact information? Email, phone, office address, the works? She hesitated. Are you sure about this? I opened my laptop and pulled up the DNA report. Probability of paternity, 0%, I read aloud, a dark smile spreading across my face. Now the fun begins. My phone lit up with text from Rachel. Mom's hysterical. What did you do? Answer me. You can't prove anything. I typed back one response. Check your email. Science doesn't lie, sis. Or should I even call you that anymore? Harper watched me with concern. You know this will destroy them. Good. I hit send on the email to Mom CCing Rachel. They destroyed me first. Time they learned about consequences. The response was immediate. Mom's ringtone, Rachel's texts, even a message from their family lawyer. I silenced them all and poured another glass of wine. Let them burn, I whispered, watching the notifications pile up. Let them all burn. I chose my childhood home for the family meeting, something poetic about burning it all down where it started. You're early, Mom said when I walked in, her hands trembling as she arranged cookies nobody would eat. Rachel sat on the couch wrapped in an expensive cashmere blanket, looking more fragile than I'd ever seen her. Actually, I'm right on time. I set my briefcase on the coffee table. Shall we begin? Begin what? Rachel's voice was hoarse. Your little power play? No, your confession. I pulled out a stack of papers. I brought copies for everyone. Mom sank into her armchair, aging years in seconds. Angelina, please, we can talk about this privately. Like you talked about Rachel's real father privately? I smiled without warmth. Those days are over. The doorbell rang. Mom jumped. Who? That'll be Harper. I asked her to witness this. I opened the door, letting Harper in. She nodded professionally to everyone and took a seat by the window. Now then, I laid out 3 documents. Let's discuss terms. Terms? Rachel tried to laugh but ended up coughing. You're treating this like a business deal? Isn't that what you did with my career, my relationship with Lamar? I watched her face pale further. Oh yes, he told me everything. The lies, the photos, the recent attempt to reconnect. Quite the performance. I was desperate. Rachel's composure cracked. You don't know what it's like, being desperate. I cut her off. Try watching your research get discredited. Try having colleagues whisper behind your back. Try losing everything you worked for because your sister was jealous. That's enough. Mom stood up, hand shaking. We're here to discuss the bone marrow donation. No, we're here because you both need something from me. But first I pulled out a recorder. Let's talk about Eduardo Ferguson. Mom dropped her cookie plate. It shattered on the hardwood floor, scattering crumbs like shrapnel. How did you find him? Wasn't hard. Chief of surgery at Memorial Hospital, never married, no children. Well, none he knows about anyway. Rachel's eyes darted between us. Mom, who is she talking about? Your father, I said simply. Your real father. The room went silent except for the tick of the grandfather clock. The one Dad had restored himself, never knowing his wife's secret. You're lying, Rachel whispered, but her eyes were on Mom. Am I? Mom, want to tell her about your affair? About how you let Dad raise another man's child without ever telling either of them? Mom collapsed back into her chair. I did what I had to do. Did you? I leaned forward. Or did you do what was easiest? My phone buzzed. Harper checked hers too, then gave me a significant look. That's interesting timing, I said, reading the message. Want to know who just arrived in town? Don't, Mom pleaded. Eduardo Ferguson is checking into the Marriott downtown right now. Harper reached out to him last week. He's very interested in meeting his daughter. Rachel started crying, silent tears tracking down her face. Mom looked like she might faint. Here's how this works, I continued, pushing the papers forward. Rachel, you sign a full confession about what you did to my career. Mom, you sign this statement admitting to the affair and paternity fraud. In return, I'll consider the bone marrow donation. Consider? Rachel's voice cracked. I could die, and I could have lost everything. Oh wait, I did. I stood up gathering my things. You have until tomorrow to decide. If I don't have both signed statements by noon, my next call is to Eduardo. You'd really do this? Mom asked. To your own family. Family? I laughed. You taught me everything I know about family, about loyalty, about love. I walked to the door, Harper following. Think of this as your final lesson to me. Wait, Rachel called out. What does he look like? I paused, hand on the doorknob. Want to find out? Sign the papers. Outside, Harper let out a long breath. That was intense. It's not over yet. I check my phone. 3 missed calls from Mom already. Want to grab dinner? I have a feeling they'll need all night to decide. You're really going to make them sweat it out. They made me sweat for years. I got into my car, watching the living room lights through the window. Besides, Eduardo's flight doesn't actually land until tomorrow morning. You're scary sometimes, you know that? I learned from the best. I started the engine just as my phone rang again. Let's see how long they last before they break. As we drove away, I caught a final glimpse of my childhood home in the rearview mirror. Mom was at the window watching us leave, looking lost in her own web of lies. Good. The old church looked exactly the same. Red brick, white trim, stained glass windows that had witnessed 2 decades of my family's carefully constructed lies. I sat in my car watching Father Michael tend to his roses just like he had every Tuesday morning since I was a kid. My phone buzzed. Harper. Eduardo's plane landed, meeting him in 30 minutes. I stepped out of the car, the morning air crisp against my face. Father Michael looked up, recognition flooding his features. Angelina, is that really you? Hello, Father. I managed to smile. Still fighting those aphids? He chuckled, wiping his hands on his gardening apron. Some battles never end. What brings you here? It's been years. I need to ask you about something. About my mother, actually, and a man named Eduardo Ferguson. The pruning shears clattered to the ground. Father Michael's face went ashen. Come inside, he said quietly. The church office smelled of old books and coffee, unchanged since my confirmation classes. Father Michael closed the door behind us. I assume this is about Rachel's condition? He sat heavily in his chair. Your mother called me yesterday quite distraught. Did she tell you what I discovered? No, but that Rachel isn't my father's daughter. I watched his reaction carefully. That she's Eduardo Ferguson's child. He didn't look surprised enough. My stomach turned. You knew, the seal of confession, don't. I held up my hand. I don't care about church rules. You watched my father die thinking both his daughters were his. You watched my mother destroy my career to protect Rachel. You knew everything. I counseled your mother to tell the truth, he said softly. Many times. When? I pulled out my phone, opening the voice recorder app. When exactly did she first confess this to you? He hesitated. Please, Father, I need to know. It was right after she found out she was pregnant, September 1990. She was terrified your father would discover the affair. I did the math quickly. That's 3 months before she told Dad she was pregnant. She considered alternatives. He looked down at his hands. I convinced her to keep the baby. My phone buzzed again. Harper, Eduardo's asking lots of questions. How much should I tell him? One more question, I said, standing up. Did my mother ever express remorse? Not for the affair, for how she treated me afterward? Angelina, simple question, Father. Yes or no? He couldn't meet my eyes. That was answer enough. Outside, I called Harper. Tell Eduardo everything, every detail. You sure? Your mom's been calling him non-stop since he landed. Even better. I started my car. I'm heading to the hospital now. Rachel asked to see me. Be careful, Harper warned. She's desperate. Rachel's hospital room was darker than before, the blinds drawn against the morning sun. She looked worse. Yellow-skinned, hollow-eyed. You came, she whispered. You called. I stayed by the door. Where's Mom? Trying to reach him. She couldn't say Father. Did you really find him? Yes. What's he like? Sign the confession and find out. She picked up an envelope from her bedside table, hands shaking. Here, everything I did, everything Mom helped me do, it's all there. I opened it, scanning the pages. Every detail was there. The fake emails, the coordinated lies with Tatum, Mom's suggestion to target my relationship with Lamar. Why? I asked, finally sitting down. Why did you hate me so much? Because you were real, she whispered. Everything about you was real. Your achievements, your relationships, your place in the family. I was always pretending, living someone else's life. My phone buzzed a message from Eduardo. We need to talk about both my daughters. He wants to meet you, I told her. I'm dying. Yes. Will you help me now that you have your confession? I stood up, tucking the envelope into my bag. I'll think about it. Angelina? Her voice was small, childlike. Were we ever really sisters? No, I said, pausing at the door. But we could have been. That was your choice. Outside, another text waited. Mom had finally reached Eduardo. They were meeting at the house. Everything was falling into place. I called Harper. Time for the final act. Ready? Are you? I looked back at Rachel's room where my not-sister lay dying, wrapped in lies and consequences. I've been ready for years. The truth was a weapon, and I was done holding back. The emergency room's fluorescent lights cast harsh shadows across everyone's faces. Rachel had collapsed an hour after our conversation, her condition deteriorating rapidly. Mom paced the waiting room like a caged animal, while I sat perfectly still. Rachel's signed confession burning a hole in my bag. This is your fault, Mom hissed at me. If you just agreed to help. Don't start, I warned. Not here. A nurse approached, clipboard in hand. Mrs. Myers, your daughter's asking for both of you. Rachel looked like a ghost against the white hospital sheets, tubes, and monitors creating a technological web around her. Her eyes fixed on me as we entered. I need to tell you something, she whispered. Both of you. Mom rushed to her side. I stayed by the door. Save your strength, sweetheart, Mom said, smoothing Rachel's hair. No, Rachel pushed her hand away. I need to say this. She looked at me. I wrote you a letter. Shanice has it. Shanice? I frowned. Your friend from college? She knows everything about what I did, what Mom helped me do. I told her to give you the letter if she coughed harsh and wet. If anything happened to me. Mom went rigid. Rachel, you're not thinking clearly. I'm thinking clearly for the first time in years. Rachel's monitor beat faster. I'm sorry, Angelina, for everything, but Mom made me what I am. That's enough. Mom stood up so fast her chair clattered backward. You need rest. What I need is truth, Rachel said for once. My phone vibrated. A text from Shanice. We need to talk. Rachel told me things, important things. I'll get the letter, I said, already backing toward the door. Angelina, wait. Mom started, but I was already gone. I met Shanice at a coffee shop across from the hospital. She looked nervous, fidgeting with a thick envelope. I never agreed with what they did to you, she blurted before I could speak. Rachel told me everything last week. How your mom convinced her you were the enemy. How they planned each step of your downfall. Planned? My hands clenched around my coffee cup. What do you mean planned? It wasn't just the research scandal. Shanice pushed the envelope across the table. Read it. Rachel wrote it all down. I opened the letter with trembling fingers. Angelina, by the time you read this, I'll probably be dead or close to it. Calmer. Right? But you deserve to know the truth. Mom started poisoning you against me when we were kids. She'd tell me how you were jealous of me, how you try to hurt me someday. Then she'd tell you the opposite. She played us against each other our whole lives. The research scandal wasn't spontaneous. Mom suggested it when she heard you were close to a breakthrough. She said you'd overshadow me forever if you succeeded. She helped me contact Tatum, helped craft the lies. Even Lamar, she told me which restaurant you'd be at with Mike, helped me stage those photos. I was her weapon against you, her insurance policy, because she knew you'd figure out the truth someday about my father, about her lies. I'm sorry, I know it's too late, but I'm sorry. Trace. My phone rang. Harper. Eduardo's here, she said without preamble. He's furious. Your mom's threatening to go public with everything unless you agree to the donation. I laughed, the sound harsh even to my own ears. Tell her to go ahead. I'll bring popcorn. Angelina. Shanice was watching me with concern. What are you going to do? Exactly what they taught me to do. I stood up, gathering the letter and my resolve. I'm going to destroy everything they hold dear. Back in the hospital, I found Mom outside Rachel's room typing frantically on her phone. Trying to get ahead of the story? I asked, making her jump. Too late. I just talked to Shanice. Whatever Rachel told her, save it. I held up the letter. It's all here. Every manipulation, every lie. Your masterpiece of maternal abuse. I did what I had to do to protect my daughter. Which one? I stepped closer. The one you raised to be your accomplice or the one you trained as your victim? Her face crumpled. Please. Rachel's getting worse. The doctors say go public. I cut her off. Tell everyone what a monster I am for refusing to help my sister. I'll counter with 30 years of documented psychological warfare. You'd let her die to prove a point? No, Mom. I smiled and she flinched. I'd let her die because you taught me how. I walked away as she called after me, her voice breaking on my name. My phone buzzed with a message from Harper. Eduardo wants to meet tomorrow. Everyone together. End this. Perfect, I texted back. Time for the grand finale. Let them see what they created. Let them reap what they sowed. The hospital conference room felt like a courtroom. Rachel insisted on being there, wheeled in by a nurse despite her deteriorating condition. Mom sat beside her, looking aged and defeated. Harper stood by the door like a sentinel while Shanice nervously clutched Rachel's letter. And Eduardo. He commanded the room just by existing, his presence a living accusation. Let's begin, I said, laying out copies of the DNA results. Everyone has questions. Today, we get answers. I'll start, Eduardo said, his voice tight with controlled anger. Stephanie, how could you keep my daughter from me for 32 years? Mom flinched at his use of her first name. I was protecting my family, by destroying mine? He slammed his hand on the table. I had a right to know. You were married, Mom shot back. I was divorced. You knew that. We talked about it the night he stopped, glancing at Rachel. The night everything changed. Rachel's monitors beeped faster. You knew he was divorced. All this time, you said your mother told me she lost the baby, Eduardo continued. I transferred to Phoenix believing he shook his head. More lies. I pulled out Rachel's confession next. Speaking of lies, let's discuss what happened to my career. Please, Rachel whispered, not now. Yes, now. I started reading. Mom helped me craft the perfect plan to destroy Angelina's research credibility. She suggested using Tatum, knowing her testimony would carry weight. Stop. Mom stood up swaying. This is about everything. I cut her off. Every lie, every manipulation, every moment you pitted us against each other. Tell them, Mom. Tell them how you groomed Rachel to hate me. I never. Tell them. I pushed Rachel's letter across the table. It's all here. How you poisoned us both, played us like chess pieces. Why? Because you knew someday your lies would surface. Eduardo picked up the letter, reading silently. His face darkened with each line. You used our daughter as a weapon. He turned to Mom. Against her own sister. They're not sisters, Mom snapped, then covered her mouth. The room went silent except for Rachel's monitors. No, I said quietly. We're not. And now everyone knows why. Rachel started crying, silent tears tracking down her hollow cheeks. I never knew about any of this, about him being divorced, about Mom's manipulation. But you knew what you were doing when you destroyed my career, I reminded her, when you tried to steal Lamar. Because Mom said you'd always try to overshadow me, that you'd use your success to prove I was worthless. Enough. Eduardo's voice cracked like a whip. Stephanie, you're going to face legal consequences for this paternity fraud. And you, he turned to me. You're really willing to let Rachel die to prove a point? No. I pulled out one final document. I'm willing to donate bone marrow under specific conditions. Mom lunged for the paper. I held it back. First condition. Mom admits everything publicly, the affair, the lies, the manipulation of both daughters. Second, Rachel's confession about my career destruction goes to every institution and publication that blacklisted me. Third, Eduardo gets full access to Rachel if he wants it. You're blackmailing us? Mom's voice shook. I learned from the best. Rachel's monitor started beeping urgently. A nurse rushed in. Her pressure's dropping, she announced. We need to move her back to her room. Wait. Rachel grabbed my hand as they prepared to wheel her out. I'll sign anything, just please help me. I looked at her. Really looked at her. Past the manipulation, past the lies to the scared woman beneath. You'll tell the truth? About everything? Yes. She squeezed my hand. I'm so tired of lies. Then yes, I said softly, I'll help you. As they took Rachel away, Eduardo approached me. You're a stronger person than I would be. No. I watched Mom hurry after Rachel's gurney. I'm exactly what they made me. Harper touched my arm. The paperwork's ready for both the donation and the confessions. Good. I gathered my things, suddenly exhausted. Let's finish this. Angelina, Eduardo called as I reached the door. Thank you for finding me, for telling the truth. I nodded, unable to speak past the lump in my throat. Outside, the sun was setting, painting the hospital windows in shades of gold and blood red. My phone buzzed with a text from Mom. I'll sign everything. Just save her. It's done, I told Harper. We won. Then why don't you look happy? I watched the sunset, thinking of family and truth and consequences. Because winning doesn't always feel like victory. The bone marrow donation left me sore but satisfied. I sat in my apartment watching rain streak down the windows while reading the morning's headlines on my tablet. Prominent researcher cleared of misconduct. Family fraud scandal rocks medical community. Distinguished doctor discovers long-lost daughter. My phone rang. Harper, have you seen the retractions? She asked without preamble. Every journal that published those false claims about your research is falling over themselves to apologize. Mom's public confession helped, I said, touching my still tender hip. Amazing what the truth can do. Speaking of truth, Rachel's responding well to the treatment. I set down my coffee. I know, Eduardo told me. Are you going to visit her? Before I could answer, my doorbell rang. I opened it to find Mom standing there looking smaller than I'd ever seen her. Can I come in? I stepped aside, letting her enter but maintaining my distance. She clutched her purse like a shield. Rachel's asking for you, she said. I'm sure she is. Angelina, please. She sat heavily on my couch. I know I don't deserve forgiveness. You're right, you don't, but I am sorry for everything. She pulled out a worn photo album. I found these while packing up the house before I sell it. You're selling the house? She nodded. Part of starting over. Eduardo's lawyers suggested it to pay for Rachel's ongoing treatment and reparations to you. I took the album, opening to pictures I'd forgotten existed. Me at science fairs holding trophies. Rachel and me, before the manipulation started, actually smiling together. I destroyed something precious, Mom said quietly. Something that could have been beautiful. My phone buzzed. A text from Eduardo. Rachel's latest tests look good. She's asking about you again. She wants to make amends, Mom continued. We both do. Amends? I laughed bitterly. How exactly do you make amends for 30 years of psychological warfare? We start with truth. Complete truth. She pulled out an envelope. This is my full confession. Everything I never put in the public statement. Every manipulation, every lie, every moment I poisoned my daughters against each other. Do with it what you want. I took the envelope but didn't open it. Why now? Because I'm tired. She stood up, straightening her jacket. Tired of lies, tired of pretending, tired of being the monster I became. She walked to the door, then paused. Eduardo's a good man. He would have been a good father. Yes, I said, he would have. After she left, I called Harper. I need a favor. Name it. Come with me to visit Rachel. The hospital room was brighter this time. Rachel sat up when I entered, her color better, her eyes clear. You came, she whispered. I did. I sat down, Harper taking position by the door. Mom gave me her full confession today. I know, she gave me a copy too. Rachel picked at her blanket. Did you read it? Not yet. It's worse than we thought. The things she did, the way she played us. She looked up, eyes wet. I know sorry isn't enough, but I am. And I want to try to fix what I broke. How? I've contacted every institution that blacklisted you, told them everything, and she reached for a folder on her bedside table. I'm signing over my trust fund to fund your research. I stared at the documents. Rachel, please let me do this one good thing. My phone buzzed again. Eduardo, having dinner with both my daughters would mean everything. We can't go back, I said finally. We can't be the sisters we should have been. I know. Rachel's voice was small, but maybe we can be something new, something honest. I thought about Mom's confession in my bag, about Eduardo's text about the rain washing the world clean outside. Dinner, I said. With Eduardo, we'll start there. Rachel's smile was tentative but real. Thank you for saving my life. I didn't do it for you. I stood up. I did it because it's who I am, despite everything they tried to make me become. Walking out, Harper squeezed my arm. You okay? I looked back at Rachel, at the photo album in my bag, at the confessions that would ensure the truth could never be buried again. No, I said honestly, but I will be. Outside, the rain had stopped. A rainbow arched across the sky, nature's own symbol of aftermath and promise. My phone buzzed one last time. Eduardo had made dinner reservations for 3. Sometimes victory isn't about winning, sometimes it's about surviving, about choosing truth over vengeance, about building something new from the ashes of what was destroyed. I texted back one word. Yes.